Hello guys, welcome to our CSS Crash Course for absolute beginners. In this course, we are actually going to be looking at CSS. So hopefully by the end of this Crash Course, you will know what is CSS and how to actually how we can use CSS to add styles to our web pages. So yeah, before we get started, like I said, this Crash Course is for absolute beginners. It's a continuation of our HTML crash course that we did earlier. So if you haven't watched that, or if you have no clear idea of what HTML is, I will advise you to go back and watch our HTML crash course before you get started with CSS. So what I also want to tell you is that everybody's CSS is different. So it's not like HTML where we got like specific tags that we use. With CSS, everybody got their own different way of adding styles and actually adding style to their website and make it look good. So you might see somebody is using a different way from my way. So that doesn't mean they are wrong or I was wrong. It's just different. It means that everybody got their own different way of using CSS. So yeah, in this crash course, we are not going to be focusing on flexbox or animation. Like I said, this is just for absolute beginners. So animation and throw and flexbox, those are a bit advanced for you guys at the moment. So we are not going to be looking at that. And we are not going to cover everything in this crash course. We're just going to give you a basic or let me say an introduction to CSS. So yeah, and then I just want you to know that in this crash course we will be introducing new HTML element in this CSS crash course, because like they go hand in hand. So yeah, what actually are we going to be needing when in this crash course? I talk about all this in our HTML crash course. I explain all this, so I'm not going to go through them again. But I just want you to know, like in this CSS crash course, we are only going to be needing a web browser, where we are going to be using Google Chrome, and then a text editor. Since you are just, I will assume you are just beginners, I don't want to complicate things for you, so we are still just going to be using a notepad. So yeah, what actually is CSS, or what do people mean whenever we are talking about CSS? Well, CSS stands for cascading style sheet. In CSS, it's not a programming language, but it's a style sheet language, or it's a styling language that we use for website layout and design. So CSS can actually help like to completely control how your web pages look without changing your HTML. Like for instance, I like to use this analogy. Like imagine you build a house, right? So the house, that's your HTML, but the house is unpainted. So in order to add color to it, you wanna need paint. So the paint will be the CSS in this analogy. So of course it will help you add style to your house. So yeah, that's what we mean whenever we are talking about CSS. And then whenever we're dealing with CSS, we have three methods of adding CSS to our HTML files. You may find some developers, they call them styling techniques, like CSS styling techniques, and some are calling them methods, but they're all talking about the same thing. So the first CSS, or the first styling techniques that we'll look at, is the inline CSS. So when dealing with inline styling technique, we add our style, our CSS rules in the same HTML file, but we come within our opening tag there. Let's say we have this header one, say hello world. So if you want to change the color of that, we come within our opening tag there and add style. Remember, this is attribute. Remember, we talk about attribute in our HTML crash course. So let's say we want to change the color, and then colons to blue, close it up with a semicolon, Control S to save, and then refresh. So you can see it's now blue there. Let's say we also want to change the font size. the font size to, let's say, 60 pixel. Control S to save, or come up here to save, and then refresh. As you can see, it's now a bit bigger. So yeah, that's how you deal with inline CSS styling. You edit within your HTML elements. And as you can see, I'll add a note here, because I will advise you to please not use inline CSS, because like as a professional developer, one of your main goals is to make sure that your codes are as clean as possible. So if you use inline CSS, it will make your codes look a bit messy. So please try not to use inline CSS, but you have to learn it because it's an option, of course, so you have to learn it. And then the second one is internal CSS, where we add them by using a style tag within the same HTML documents. We add our style tag within the same HTML document. And when dealing with internal styling technique, like I said, we edit in the same HTML file, but we come up here into our header tag, opening and closing header tag within our opening and closing header tag. That's where we come there, and then we create our style tag, open and close style tag, and then let's just add the type there. The type, we just want to make it a text CSS. So within our CSS, our style tag there, come in between there, and then we can add our styling. So let's say we want to change the color of this and then the size. So we already know this is a H1, so we just call our selector there, which is H1, and then you open your curly brackets and then close it off, and then within your open and closing curly brackets, that's where you will go. You write your color and then the semicolons, and then let's say you want to make it orange. Control S to save, or come up here to save, and then refresh. As you can see, it's now orange. So you can close it off, and then you want to change the font size as well. You want to make it 80 pixel. Then close it off with a semicolons, and then refresh. As you can see, it's now big. So yeah, that's how you deal with internal CSS styling technique. You add your CSS in your header tag, you add your style tag in between your header tag there, and then you add your CSS rules. And then the third and last styling techniques is the external CSS, where we'll be forced to create an external CSS file and then link it to our HTML file. So when dealing with external CSS styling, like I said, we'll have to create an external CSS file. So let's just go ahead and create that. We'll just come up here and then save this as, and then I'll just call it style.css, and then all file, and then UTF. Just you can give it whatever name you want, but just make sure you edit with a .css extension. So all CSS file got a .css extension, and then you save it. So if you come into your folder where we keep it, so this is actually the styling technique that we will be using in this crash course, since it helps make our CSS or our file, since it helps make our HTML code look clean. So I advise you to always use an external CSS styling techniques. You will see in this, so when you come into, you will see we have our style here. Like for me, I got a JetBrains web, I got WebStone installed on my machine, so that's why you are seeing this. But for you, you'll probably see like a notepad icons, or just an empty, like something like an empty paper. but it's all the same. So yeah, let's just open it up. As you can see, mine is already open up. Let me just close this off, and then to open it up, you can just click on it, right click on it, and then open with. So we want to open it with a notepad. So this is our CSS, so we have to delete all this and then just leave it empty. And then I also want to open up my HTML file with this is my HTML, and then this is my CSS, HTML and then CSS, and then this is my browser. So you can see my HTML, and then this is my browser. So to actually add some styling, some CSS rules, we come into our external CSS here, which is this one. As you can see, it's empty. So like I said, we first have to call our h1, which is our selector, and then open and close your curly brackets, and then you want to change the color. You want to make it, let's say, brown, and then you want to change the font size. You want to make it 70 pixel. As you can see, even if you come into your browser and refresh, nothing is showing, not changing. That's because you haven't linked it to your HTML. So you have to come to your HTML file. In your header tag, you have to create a link there. Just close it off, and then within this you have to add the rel, add a rel, which should be a style sheet, and then the type should be a text.css, and then the href, which is the source, so it should have the same name as your CSS file, which is style.css. So the href is style.css, as you can see, and then Ctrl S to save, and then come into your browser and then refresh. As you can see, it's now changed to hello world and then to a brown color. So that's how you will link your CSS file to your HTML. This is the rel, which is the style sheet, the type, which is the CSS, and then the ref, which is the source, which is style.css. So yeah, those are the three CSS styling technique. This was just a quick introduction to them, but I did a video about these three CSS styling techniques before, so where I explain more into details, where I also give you a disadvantage and advantage of using each one of them. So make sure you check that video out. So like I said, we are going to be using the external CSS styling techniques, and then whenever we are dealing with CSS, we got selectors. So the first thing that will help whenever you are writing or you want to add CSS to your HTML or to your HTML elements, you first have to call out a selector. Then in this case, it's a p tag, which is our paragraph tag. This p means a paragraph. You remember we talk about tags in HTML, and then so you write your p, which is a selector, and then you open up your curly brackets and then close it off. And then within our curly brackets, let's say we want to change the background color to orange. So the background color is the property, and then you separate it with the colons, and then you add orange, which is the value, and then you add it with or you close it off with a semicolons. You call out your selector, which in this case is the p tag. You open your curly brackets and then close it off, and then you add your property, which is the background color, add your colons, and then add your value, and then close it off with a semicolons. So that's how you can actually write your CSS rule. So yeah, it might look confusing to some of you, but believe me, it will make sense when we are actually when we move on to our practical part, where we're actually going to be writing our CSS, adding our CSS rule. So yeah, this was just a quick introduction to give you a clear understanding, or to show you what we are actually going to be dealing with. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial, where we are actually going to be starting with writing our codes. So yeah, I'm out. I will see you guys in the next video.